So you're ready to add a new piece to the collection, but have you answered and asked yourself these important questions first? Well, what's up everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be giving you 5 important questions to ask yourself before adding a new figure to the collection, or a used one for that matter. But before we get into any of that, I want to bring up a very interesting statistic that I recently found when logging into my YouTube Studio app, and that is that 70% of people that watch these videos are not subscribers. That means only 30% of you guys out there have already subscribed. So if you are out there and if you have not yet subscribed to this channel and you're looking for something that's just a little bit different, that will always leave you thinking different by the end of it, go ahead and give me a subscribe. I would certainly appreciate that. For this video, go ahead and hit me with a presumptive like. I would certainly appreciate that as well. But also, one last thing of shameless self-promotion, I do want to say that if you've not yet visited my Instagram account, you'll notice it right there, Kiko Collects. I am very close to 5,000 followers on there. I really want to get over that hurdle, so if you can help me, I would certainly appreciate it. So stop what you're doing right now, go follow me on that Instagram page, and then get right back over here. The link actually is in the bio to get right back to this video. Go ahead and help me out with that. So let's get into the main event today. We're going to be talking about 5 important questions to ask yourself before buying a brand new figure. If money is burning a hole in your pocket and you just have to scratch that itch, you just have to have something new. I mean, let's face it, we're all collectors. We always have to have something new. But before you do that, are you answering some simple questions? Are you stopping to think about why you're buying something? No one buys something with the hope of having to sell it and eventually take a loss on it, or own it and have it not fulfill you. So let's ask these few questions to make sure that doesn't happen to you. The first question that is so easy to ask is, why do I want this figure? Did you happen to see a review and you said, that's actually a pretty decent figure. I didn't think it was that good. And you rush out to go and get it? Did you happen to be coerced into getting it because someone says, hey, you need it? Did you get it because, hey, I want to impress some Facebook people online or on Twitter or on Reddit or wherever it is that you happen to lurk? Whatever the question is, answer that for yourself. Why are you buying it? Because if you can't answer that question in the first place, you don't need to be buying it. You need to avoid the idea of getting it simply because you have to have something. Each piece in your collection should have purpose, and we'll talk about that in just a second. In this day and age of me-firstism and honestly, frankly, materialism, we are so infatuated with getting people to like us for the things that we have. I've put it on different types of social media before, I've said it multiple times, but there's a classic meme that I think is so funny that says, don't go broke trying to impress broke folks that you aren't broke. And that's such an important life lesson to think about. We should never just be getting things to try to win internet points. Your collection should be a reflection of yourself, and it should not be for anyone else. So many times when I'm online just surfing, I see people putting their figures up for sale, taking loss on them because they said, this is not something I wanted. And if we stop to ask ourselves, why did I get this in the first place? We could avoid that major pitfall. The second thing I always ask myself, and I want you to start asking yourself too whenever you get ready to make a purchase, is, do I have an attachment to this figure or to this franchise? And that is so important because you should not have anything in your collection that doesn't speak to you. Did you buy something, like I said, simply because someone else has it or because you thought, ooh, they might like me if I get this? Let me just go on to say that if you do not have an attachment to anything, you should not be buying it in the first place. And by the way, I will be the first to raise my hand and say, I have made this mistake. I have notoriously bought into the hype of the Justice League. I notoriously bought into the hype of the Arkham City figures. Now, if you're a DC collector, you like the Justice League, cool, that's great. Don't go and grab Marvel then simply to impress people. But I am not the biggest DC fan. I love my Batman, obviously, and I love my Dark Knight, but there was no purpose of me having the Justice League. I like Batman, as I said, but I had no attachment to the Arkham video games, and I went and got almost every piece from that Arkham video game line and ended up selling every single one of them. Why? Because I did not have an attachment to that figure nor to that franchise. It can also be said that if you do not have an attachment to a film, a franchise, or a figure, that most likely if you're going to pre-order something or when it's announced and it eventually comes out, you probably won't be hyped about it for when it actually does come out. Keep in mind, when Hot Toys announces these figures, such as Thor recently, or Wanda from Multiverse of Madness, or whatever the property may be, realize that you're not getting that figure probably for 18 months at least. So you have to ask your question. If you have no attachment to the figure, simply because someone did a review or a preview of it and you say, ooh, that looks cool, I'll put down a day one pre-order for that, which I've talked about in my last video. There's no need to be doing day one pre-orders as of right now. But if the hype wears off, then you do not have an attachment to that figure, and there's no need for you to add that to the collection. So make sure to see, do I have an attachment to this figure, this film, or this franchise? Now, number 3 is a big one and possibly the most important, and that is, do I have the money for this figure? Now, this is something that's a little bit awkward to talk about because this is an expensive hobby. It's not cheap to get all these different figures, and it's not cheap to go and just buy things simply to buy things and simply to impress people. We don't want to do that. You certainly don't want to do that, because if you do not have the funds for a figure, you certainly do not want to buy it. Now, I mentioned in my last video, there is opportunities for you to use payment plans. There's ways to break up your payments, use some rewards, get some discounts, things like that. That is cool if that is something that you're tied to and that's something that you want to actually buy. But do not get yourself in trouble financially simply because you need a new piece of plastic or you need to scratch that itch. As I said, this is supposed to be a fun hobby for us all to enjoy. So if you don't have the money to go and get a new piece, then let's save that money and wait till you do, because I promise you it is far more fulfilling to buy a figure and be able to pay that off and say, I own this, to be having to make credit card payments on it every single month or whatever it may be. So number 3, make sure you have the money to make the purchase. The 4th thing I would want us all to think about is where and how will you display this figure? Because let's be honest, these are works of art. These do not need to be in boxes or to be sitting in closets somewhere. Now, I have seen people all the time, and we can talk about this, buy figures, have nowhere to put them, and they just sit in storage. These are works of art. As I've said, they need to be displayed. They need to have a place to be prominently shown off. So if you don't have the space to put them someplace, then let's ask this question. What can you do to make some room? Does that mean that you may need to sell off some other figures, move them out of your collection? That's a great way to earn a little bit extra capital so that you can go ahead and put that towards new figures. Or if you simply said, you know what, I've outgrown this type of collecting. I don't want to be having any of these certain types of figures. So you move them out and make room for new ones. Maybe you decide that I want to get into quarter scale, or I want to get into statues, and you say, okay, I am done with 6 scale collecting. Just throwing different hypotheticals out there. So you move those 6 scale figures out, you sell them, and you make room for the new ones to come in. Because as I said, these are works of art. Show them off. You'll be happy. You'll be proud to be able to display them. So unless you have a place to put them and you know how you want to display them, best keep it out of your collection. So the 4th question I would say is where and how to display your new piece. And finally, the last question for you to ask yourself before you buy anything new to add to the collection is, will I regret not having it 6 months from now? Ask yourself that. It's a great way to avoid the fear of missing out. It's a great way to kind of make sure that you still remain hyped. It's a little bit of a mind trick that you do on yourself. Whenever you see something new, whenever that figure is revealed, ask yourself, okay, honestly, will I still want this 6 months from now? It's a way to kind of pinch yourself, to bust yourself out of that dream of the collector, to say, okay, let's think about this. Do I really want it? Or will I regret not having it? If you can honestly say, you know what, this is an opportunity that I cannot miss, then go ahead and pull the trigger. Because believe me, I've talked about it on our podcast. I have known that if you pass on a figure, or if you think about it and you say, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and get it, always pull the trigger if you think you're going to regret it in 6 months. Because who knows? You may not get another opportunity to get that specific figure, and you want to make sure that you have access to it. So when it's readily available, you can answer all those questions and you say, you know what, if I don't get this now, in 6 months, I will regret not having it. then go ahead and pull the trigger and make sure to add that beautiful piece to the collection. Well, that's going to do it for us here today. Asking yourself those important questions. I need to remind myself of that as well. Anytime I want to add a new piece to the collection, answer those 5 questions before you go and buy, and you will be much happier and your collection will thank you for it. Let me know down below what the piece is that you most want and why. We all have that figure that we're chasing. Let me know down below what yours is and why you want it. Also, let me know, are these questions helpful? Have you ever thought about that? Is it something that you may want to start doing? Let me know down below. I love engaging with all the comments. I always make sure to answer every single one of them. Unless they're hateful, unless they're trolls, then I check out. And of course, if you've not yet subscribed to this channel, please do so. Go ahead and give me a presumptive like on this video if you've not done so already. I would certainly appreciate it. Check out me on Instagram, and I will be seeing you in our next video.